Hello everybody, today I want to show you where we are in renewable energy in South Africa and in energy, electricity, nuclear, coal, gas, etc. and try to get some clarity of the first phase of understanding what's going on in looking at the history. So, first slide is from Carl Sagan, one of our great scientists of the 20th century, who said, anything else you're interested in is not going to happen if you can't breathe the air and drink the water. Don't sit this one out. Do something. You are by accident or fate alive at an absolutely critical moment in the history of our planet. I agree with that. Everybody that's alive today is alive for a particular reason. Accident or fate. Don't sit this one out. Do something. What is the something we should do? What's happening to our Earth? Does it really look like this with all these smokestacks, pollution? People talk about global warming. Some scientists say it's happening, some scientists say it's not happening. What is definite? Environmental destruction is happening. We're destroying our biome. It's becoming more and more difficult for Earth and its creatures to breathe. And so what does Earth do? It sends humans a breathing illness, screaming, I can't breathe. When David and other people start working from their homes, moving their offices to their homes in 2002 and even before, and saying to everybody, move your office to your house. Get out of traffic. Get out of buildings. Get out of conference centers. Get out of planes. Look, if you run a factory and you need to go somewhere to fix it, that's fine. If you want to go on holiday to visit your family, that's fine. But all unnecessary travel should stop. The nice thing about being in your office at home is you're never late for a meeting. And you can make local electricity and local water and grow local food by yourself or in community. And clean up your act. So let's set the scene and see where we get to and where we're going. My vision, David's vision, David Lipshitz's vision for my city Cape Town. If you're in New York or London or Sydney or Tokyo or Taipei or Moscow or anywhere on the planet, Sao Paulo, Paris, wherever you are, you must have a vision for your city, like this lady on the right who has a vision. My vision is an environmentally friendly, low cost, high quality of life place of abundance and friendship. So I want my city to be environmentally friendly. I want my country to be environmentally friendly. I want my energy system to be environmentally friendly. I want its cost to be coming down all the time for myself and for the environment. I want the quality of life to be going up all the time. I want abundance of food, of water, of electricity, of transport. I want all those costs to be going down. I want all of them to be environmentally friendly. And I want a place where I can be friendly with my friends, where I can hug and kiss and love and not be socially distant and not have to wear masks. Before COVID, the masks were the masks of deceit and hatred, where I smiled at someone even while I stabbed them behind their back. I want an environmentally friendly, low cost, high quality of life place of abundance and friendship. That is where I've been going since 1999, when I discovered my purpose on planet Earth. I want to plan today for a happy tomorrow. In normal retirement planning, we have to keep increasing income to cover increasing expenses. Every year I need a salary increase. Every year petrol goes up. Every year electricity goes up. Every year water goes up. Every year transport goes up. Every year taxi services go up. Every year tax goes up. Even though it looks like it comes up, but indirectly it's going up because there's tax in petrol, for example. In South Africa, somewhere around 75% of the petrol price is tax. 30% of South Africa's petrol is made from coal in South Africa. It's not dependent on any pricing from overseas. We get 100% of our sunflower oil from South Africa. We export canola oil, yet sunflower and canola oil have gone up in price in the past few months. So when we retire, we need to earn a lot more than we earn now. And if we retire at, say, 65, and we live another 20, 30 years, we still need to make sure that our income is going up by more than the rate of inflation. And the government might say the rate of inflation is 6%, but if my electricity price goes up by 20%, and my water price goes up by 15%, and my food price goes up by 16%, then my inflation might be 20% per annum, even though the average inflation is 6%. And if there are 55 million people in South Africa, and there's only 5 million employed people, and the rest are either unemployed or not wanting to be employed, or young or old, then 5 million people have got very high inflation and having to work harder and harder and burning out quicker and quicker to pay for people who don't have any inflation. Because if you don't earn anything, you don't have any inflation. If you get free electricity this year and you get free electricity water, so if you get free electricity this year and you get free electricity next year, you get free electricity, free water this year and free water next year, and you get free transport this year and free transport next year, and you get rebates on your property this year, and you get free education and you get free medicine, then you don't have any cost of living increase. Your inflation is zero. And even people who have retirement planning get to 65 and discover that even with rental income and share income and dividend income, they still have to start selling stuff to maintain their quality of life. And hardly anyone can stay in the house that they lived in maybe for 30 years and paid off after they retire for more than a few years, and then they've got to downsize, downscale, sell stuff. So in 1999 I looked at this and I said there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And we look at Investing 101. And as I said, most people don't have enough money to retire in their final or wanted lifestyle, even with property and share and other portfolios. So Investing 101 has failed. We get told to buy shares, to buy properties, to have portfolios. And yet when we retire, 99.9% of people don't have enough money to retire on. And even the 0.1% of people who have enough money to retire on don't have enough money to retire on until they die. Most of them still have to sell stuff. There's got to be a better way. What is it? What did I discover in 1999? I discovered David's retirement planning. What we want is we want to reduce our cost of living. We want to reduce our cost of living every year, which leads to an increased quality of life, increased health, and increased self-esteem. I could be motivated, but I could lose my motivation. My self-esteem can never be taken from me. My self-esteem is because of my values, because of my ethics, because of my way of life, because of the things I believe in. And my cost of living should be able to come down every year. And if it does, it increases my quality of life. And if I have my office at home and I don't stress out for 2 hours in traffic, and I don't breathe that horrible pollution, and I have air filters at home, in my office at home, my health increases. I always make sure that I have the best quality food at home. I'm never dependent on buying cheap food or bistro food or charging into the local fish and chip shop for maybe some slap chips or something. I'm not saying that you shouldn't ever do that. Yes, of course. We all want to have fish and chips sometimes in newspaper. Slap chips, salt and vinegar chips, great. But that should be the rare occasion. At home, I can make vegetable juices. I can make sure my fridge is stocked with superfoods. If I need to have a break, I can go outside and spend time with my dogs and talk to my dogs and talk to my cats, maybe go for a walk. If it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm tired, maybe I can have a sleep. Maybe I can go for a walk with my dogs. If I don't have any appointments, I can leave the office, go for a walk for 2 hours, come back. We'll either work late, catch up on the weekend. But I've discovered that since I moved my office to my house in 2002, I became 30% more productive. And I actually earned more than my office-based colleagues until COVID. Until the majority of people worked from home, moved their offices to home, and then companies said, but you're saving money on transport, and you're saving money on this, and you're saving money on that, and you don't have to get paid so much. So they reduced rates. In some of my cases, my clients have reduced my rates by more than 30% in the last 2 years. And I don't really feel like working too many hours for 30% less than I'm worth. In some cases up to 50% less than I'm worth, because since 2019 I haven't put prices up. In 2020 I couldn't put my price up. In 2021 I had to reduce my price. In 2022 I had to reduce my price even more. And yet I don't commute, I have 2 hours more. I'm never stressed when I arrive at work. You know, if I sat on the tube, the London Underground in London, where I lived for 6 years, before cell phones and so on. You might be stuck underground, you might be 20 minutes late for work, your boss is jumping up and down, where are you? And you say, the tube was late, and he says, well, why didn't you leave half an hour earlier? And you said, I did leave half an hour earlier, but the bus was late, everything was late. And you're stressed out, and then you don't work for the first hour, because now you're worried, am I going to get fired? At work you might get fired, but at home you get fired up. You're so excited about the day. How do we get there? What do we need to do? What do we need to think about? What's important? Let's do a brainstorm. What is the most important thing that we need right now? What is the most important thing that you want right now? Some people might say, I want to retire. Great. But even before you retire. Some people say, I might want a holiday. Great. What do you need before the holiday? What do you need now? What do you need in the next 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes? What do you need? You need air. You need clean, fresh, environmentally friendly air. Without toxins, without heavy metals, without pollution. To nourish your body. Oxygen clears ailments. Oxygen makes the body heal. When you're sitting in your car and breathing lead that's coming out of exhausts, even with lead-free petrol, can you believe that we were so stupid in the 1920s to put lead into petrol to prevent knocking, even though by then we had learned how to make petrol without lead? But we could make it cheaper with lead than with the processes that didn't need lead. So we put lead in for 80 years. And now we've got lead in soil and lead in food. We had lead pipes in ancient days. Most people were insane. They drank water which came in lead pipes. People used to drink mercury as a sedative. I want to be alive in 3 minutes. I want to make sure that in the next 3 minutes I have the best quality air with the least bad stuff with the most good stuff. I don't want pollution in my air. I don't want lead and NOx and SOx and 100 pollutants in the air. How much pollution am I breathing when I sit in my car, or sit in a train, or I sit in a plane for hours? What happens when I get into a sardine can at 30,000 feet for 12 hours with 300 people I don't know? Who's sick? Who's not sick? And yes, there are HEPA filters, HEPA filters in planes, filtering the air. The air's clean. It's probably cleaner not to wear masks on planes because of the fantastic air conditioning systems and air pumping systems that compress outside air and pump the air into the plane, and then filter that air and send it out into the atmosphere. I want clean, fresh, pure air. And because I want that in 3 minutes, it informs everything I do, because if I want it in 3 minutes, I need it in 30 years, I need it in 100 years. I need to design my electricity system and my water system and my food system and my transport system so that I am alive in 3 minutes, and so that I'm healthy. And then 3 minutes after that, I'm still healthy. I stay out of hospitals. I stay out of doctors' offices. And it's of course having accidents. Everybody has accidents. We need doctors. I'm not saying we don't need doctors. Doctors perform a very important task. But why go to a doctor because you've been breathing pollution? Rather go to the doctor because of some issue. I need fresh, clean, oxygenated air. This must inform everything we do. Electricity enables everything we do. So now someone says, after air, the next thing I need is water. And I say, actually, after air in a city, the next thing you need is electricity. Why is that? Because the water comes from a dam, 100 kilometers, 60 miles from my house. And how does it get to my house? It gets pumped to my house. When I open the tap, the water's under pressure. It comes out of my tap. It's under pressure because of electricity, or because it's held in a tank 2 or 3 floors up. But usually it's because of electricity. And the pumps keep the water under pressure. And if there's no electricity, there's no water. In a city, even water comes out of taps because of electricity. Electricity price must be coming down all the time due to the learning curve. And yet every time we build a new coal power station, and every time we build a new nuclear power station, and every time we build a new gas power station, and every time someone builds a new car, every time Mercedes, BMW, Audi, Porsche, VW, Hyundai, every time they bring out a new car, it's more expensive than the previous car. Why is that? Henry Ford, in the 1910s and 1920s, every car he bought out was cheaper than the previous one. Tractors halved in price over 10 years. He reused parts in his cars. If we could do it in the 1910s and 1920s, what have we forgotten? Even Tesla, our genius South African colleague, Elon, and his colleagues, the Tesla price should be coming down every year. That was the intention. Bring out a very expensive car. The next car's cheaper. The next car's cheaper. And every version of the Roadster should be cheaper than the previous one. Every version of the Model S should be cheaper than the previous one. Every version of the Model X should be cheaper than the previous one. Every version of the Model Y should be cheaper than the previous one. If it's not, we're not doing our jobs properly, even with inflation. At the very least, the price should be constant. And you look at new cars and they've got new lights. Why? Why don't we use the same lights? Why don't we use the same parts? I've got a 1200cc motorbike. Now BMW are building a 1250. Why? They could build 1200s for 25 years. They don't need a bigger engine. It's completely unnecessary. Make a 1200cc engine. It's enough. does everything. And imagine if all of the parts were interchangeable and the price came down every year, so more people could buy those machines and more people could enjoy them. We could have more motorcyclists on the road and more caring. Electricity's abundance must be going up. Well, we know the electricity price, the electricity consumption doubles every 20 years. Electricity consumption goes up by 3.6% per annum, which means it doubles every 20 years. Even with efficiency, even with my fridge and my freezer and my pool pump, my fridge uses half the electricity of my previous fridge. My new big freezer uses about a third of the electricity of my freezer from 20 years ago. My pool pump uses about a third of the electricity of my original pool pump. But even with all of those efficiencies, Jevons paradox, Jevon, look it up, Jevons paradox, says that as I make things cheaper, my electricity consumption and production goes up fast. Now think about it like this. Let's suppose I make a widget and it costs $10 to make the widget. Okay? And let's suppose I bring the cost down of the widget to $5. I halve the price. Now I don't sell 2, I sell 4, which means I need twice as much electricity. And if I bring the cost down again to $2.50, maybe I sell 1,000. And if I bring the cost down to $1, maybe I sell 1,000,000. If I bring the cost down to 50 cents, maybe I sell 1,000,000,000. And therefore, one of the things that people don't understand about capitalism is capitalism drives down the cost of production. And that means I have a cell phone in my hand, which cost me maybe $500. It's got $100,000 of hardware and software in it, as against 20 years ago. Just think about everything in your cell phone. It's got a TV in it. It's got a phone. It's got a video communications engine. It's got a GPS. It's got a weather station. It's got the whole world's library. It's got Wi-Fi. I mean, a GPS 20 years ago was expensive. Now it's in my phone. $100,000. Singularity University did research. There's $100,000 of hardware and software in a $500 phone. That's what capitalism does. It drives down the cost, which means everybody gets access to stuff. But if the cost of the cell phone is coming down every year, then why is the cost going up? Why does a MacBook Pro in 2022 still cost me 70 or 80,000 rand? Okay, we've got the problem of the South African exchange rate becoming poorer. But I mean, a computer when I was a child was 4,500 rand, and a laptop today is 4,500 rand. And it's got more RAM, and it's got a bigger hard drive, and it's got a better screen. Electricity's environmental quality, according to our ethos, must be going up all the time. And if electricity's price comes down, then water's price comes down. Water's pumped with electricity. I can desalinate water. I live next to the sea. If the electricity price is coming down, I can desalinate water. And if electricity and water's price are coming down, then the food price comes down, and the transport price comes down, and all the prices come down. But if I set up my system so that my electricity price is going up all the time, and its quality is getting worse, and there's more pollution, then I'm creating more costs, environmental hazards, health crisis, respiratory diseases, poxes, and Legionnaire's disease, and sick buildings, and all kinds of problems. And all because what we really need to be doing is saying, what is the most important thing we need? I need fresh oxygenated air, and in order for it to be fresh and clean, I must consider 100 years in my thinking. Our current world has got exponential growth. And everything looks great, but the problem with exponential growth is it absorbs, it needs more and more. More mines, more minerals, more coal, more uranium. People are complaining about lithium. But every single cell phone, every single car, whether it's electrical or not, every car is electrical, even if it's not electrical. Fuel injection. You need a battery to start the car, even if it's a petrol car. Some petrol cars have got 2 batteries. Exponential growth means that we need more and more mining, we need more and more materials, we need more and more trees. It's got to be a better way. This is Henry Ford from 1909 until 1923. And look at this. Over here, these green dots are the actual production. And that line is the regression. The line shows the trend is down. And over here, when there were 10,000 vehicles, the cost was, say, $4. And over here, when there were 1 million, the cost was 2. And over here, when there were, say, 2 million, the cost was 1. And that was what Ford did, Henry Ford. And yes, I know some people don't like him for all kinds of reasons. There's always, every rich person, it's always easier to pick on them because they're visible. Everybody's got faults. But Henry Ford made every car use the same parts as the previous car. Every tractor, the same parts as the previous tractor. Every model used the same parts as each other. And so he drove the cost of production down. And even at the same time, they had very high staff turnover. And then they realized, no, we need to reduce staff turnover, and they started paying people more. And then they realized that people shouldn't be walking around, and so they raised the level of production so someone could sit and work. And they did so many things to increase efficiency. They said, we'll employ a blind person, and we'll find a job for the blind person. Or we'll employ a cripple, and we'll find a job for the cripple. And they did incredible workflow and work analysis back then. And the learning curve, the learning curve means, let's go back to that picture there. The learning curve goes down all the time. That's the learning curve. Every nuclear power station should cost less than the previous one. Every coal power station should cost less than the previous one. South Africa is building 2 power stations. I've got 4 or 5 big turbines and systems each. We should have built 1. And then it would have cost us, say, 100 million rand. And then we should have bought the second one, would have cost 80, and the third one 60, and the fourth one 40. But what did we do? We tried to put all 10 of them at the same time. And then there's mistakes, and the mistakes are in all 10. And we built a power station that's never been built before. We can get into that. This mind map, which I produced in 2018, it's amazing that it's 4 years ago already, says what are our really big problems. You can find this mind map on SlideShare. You can email me, message me, and I'll tell you where it is. But you can see here, number 1 is electricity, number 2 is water, number 3 is food, number 4 is education, number 5 is transport, number 6 is jobs. Look at all the problems with jobs. Number 7 is garbage. Number 8 is what can we do about it? What happens in a world of automation? What happens in the 4th industrial revolution and the 5th industrial revolution? In the 3rd industrial revolution, blue-collar workers' jobs were automated. I was in ITMA, the International Textile Exhibition, in 1987 in Paris. I saw an automatic spinning factory where the cotton or the wool was dropped off at the beginning of the factory, and it automatically went through all the processes. The unpackaging, the carding, the drawing, the spinning, the winding, the boxing, and it arrives on the other side automatically. And there were 3 technicians in that factory, probably replacing 30 people. I'm not saying that automation is bad. I'm saying that those 30 people should be owning the factory instead of one person. We have the same problem in the taxi industry here. I've been speaking to taxi people since 2016 and saying to them, you need to own automatic taxis, and they laugh at me. But what about employment? And I say, but by 2030, all the taxis are going to be automatic. And the taxi industry should own those taxis by investing in those taxis and those systems, so the income comes to the people that own the taxis, and the taxi drivers can benefit. We have so much we need to do, so much we need to think about. In my mind, it's all very simple. It all starts off with, I want clean, environmentally friendly air. I want clean, environmentally friendly electricity and water and food and transport and health. So this lady is wondering about the future and what should she do. And she realizes, hey, I can do something, I can fix it. This graph shows how electricity prices have changed from 2008 to 2024. And this red line here, in 2008, this was my electricity cost per kilowatt hour, and we're now in 2022, and this is the last price that's going up next month to R3.31. It's gone from 50 cents to R3.31. NERSA, the energy regulator, said the price would go up at that rate, that purple line. And why is my rate higher than that rate? When we're looking at R3 compared to R2.80. And the reason is because there's a lot of people getting free electricity, and I have to pay for the electricity. So because I earn, even though I pay tax and I pay more money, etc., etc., I have to pay for people who get free electricity. That's fine. I'm happy to redress the wrongs of the past, but I'm not happy for leaders to be taking money and buying Louis Vuitton bags, flying first class, buying private jets, driving X5s, when I don't even own a car. This line here at the bottom is the price that Eskom, our utility, charges. That's their selling price, the average selling price. And now what's interesting is you see it was 23 cents here, and it needed to go to, say, R1.50. But that's, if we go to up by R1, it's gone up by R1. And if electricity went from 50 cents to R1.50 in 10 years, then over here it would have been R1.50 and not R2. But what's happened is that the cities have put up the price by the percentage and not by the amount. So let's suppose I buy something for R1 and I set it for R2, and the price goes up by 100% to R2. Technically, I can increase my price to R3. I don't have to increase my price to R4. And so the cities complain that they're not making as much money as they used to, but they've radically put up prices when they didn't need to. And just for argument's sake, this dotted line is inflation. So from 2008, when my price was 50 cents, to now, 2022, when my price is just over R1. My actual price is R3, but my real price should be closer to R1 with inflation. And what's my salary done in the past 10 years? My salary has gone up by inflation. And as I said earlier, my salary has actually gone down in the past 2 years. So my salary means I've got to work more hours every month. Or I've got to be clever and not need to work that many hours, because I don't have an electricity cost, and I don't have a water cost, and I don't have a food cost, and I don't have a transport cost, and I don't have a health cost, and I don't have an environmental cost. And this green line here is the cost of photovoltaic electricity. And in 1960, if we go back to 1960, the cost was $60, which in today's money is 900 Rand a kilowatt hour. So it came from 900 Rand down to 20 cents or 60 cents. Came down 99.97%. And in that time of renewable energy prices coming down, coal, nuclear, hydroelectric, gas prices have gone up. And even in the last 10 years, the price of renewable energy has dropped 90% for grid tie, and by 95% including batteries. I should have another curve on here showing the battery curve, and I'm working on how to add it, because I started doing this graph in 2010, and every year I add to it, and this is where it is now, and I try to predict for the next couple of years. But I need to add that trend line that shows what's happened with battery prices. And then we get to this. I started this graph in 2008. In 2008, Eskom and the government predicted the build of the pumped storage in Gula Power Station and Medupi and Casita, the two new coal giants. And the blue line is when the units were meant to come online, and the orange line is when they actually came online. But they're only online at 40% capacity. I've assumed they're producing 50%. And this open space here, okay, represents the loss to the economy. And that loss is 40 trillion rand. And if coal-free had been produced, and if the renewable energy rules had been put in place like they should have, the cost might be, the GDP loss could be closer to 100 trillion rand. 10 million jobs lost because of Eskom unable to supply electricity. And when we get told there's load shedding, actually Eskom should have 80 gigawatts already by now. My personal calculations show that Eskom should have between 200 and 300 gigawatts. But let's suppose it's 80. It means that if we start load shedding at 28 gigawatts, Eskom are load shedding 52 gigawatts 24 hours a day, and that's costing jobs. It's cost the textile industry to go out of business. It's cost the gold business to lose production. It's cost South Africa masses of foreign exchange because of short-term thinking. I wrote in 2010 that scientifically these power stations couldn't work. Why? Because under apartheid, there were a lot of sanctions. And so what did South Africa do? They learnt from Germany, and they started making they started converting coal into oil with the Fischer-Tropsch Sasol system. And they exported the best quality thermal coal with 0.5% sulfur. And they learnt how to build coal power stations that could burn high sulfur content and high ash content coal, which meant that the power stations were lower pressure and lower temperature than other power stations around the world. And that worked very well. But then the new government came in and they fired all the engineers and they said, we're going to build supercritical power stations because they're 5% more efficient. Great. Under normal circumstances, that would be fine with new technology. But that meant that we needed to put the best quality coal in, which means we need to stop exporting that good quality coal, and we need to put that good quality coal into our local power stations. But we didn't do that. It's like frying chips in your kitchen, hot chips, and then taking that chip oil and putting it in your car. And how far do you think your car go? 10 kilometers? And then you've got to spend 3 days fixing it, and then you can go another 10 kilometers, and you've got to spend 3 days fixing it, and so on. That's what's happening at Eskom power stations. Here's the graph. I've done this every year, and I projected the kilowatt hours, and I projected the cost of energy, and I projected the blah blah blah, all that stuff. And here's the 40 billion, and here's 5 billion of lost VAT revenue. And I've made conservative assumptions here. I can send you the spreadsheet that this is all based on and show you that every single government minister could have their own private jet, and there would still be change if they'd just done their jobs. 40 trillion rand, which is possibly 120 trillion rand. And look at this. Here's an Eskom power station. There. That's what it looks like close up. Okay. This was Medupi in 2015. According to that graph I showed you before, Medupi was meant to be finished in 2015. But look at it. That's how far it was in 2015. On the top right, here is a coal mine, surface coal mine. In the background is a power station. It might be this power station. This is called an ash dam. Eskom's biggest product is ash. Electricity is not Eskom's biggest product, and that ash needs to be managed. And over here is the pollution, massive pollution that South Africa creates because we burn horrible quality coal. And on the bottom right, from the white paper, which is a strategy document, a government strategy document in 2003, the government predicted that load shedding would start in 2008. And if you read the document, it says load shedding will continue at least until 2030. And we're in 2022, and everybody says, why have we still got load shedding? Well, the government's own strategy paper said we're going to have load shedding from 2008 till 2030. And part of the reason is because of this, no new power stations. And then the Eskom cliff over here, when old power stations need to be closed. And technically, Medupi, this new power station here, is outside its license conditions because it's meant to have scrubbers. It's meant to have something called clean coal, which is a misnomer because of all the crap coming out of those chimneys. And all of this stuff meant to be cleaned up. But it's not clean. And even the Eskom's existing power stations, in 2010, Eskom signed agreements that by 2015, the existing power stations would be clean. But they're not. And Eskom are outside their license conditions. And a third of the power stations operating illegally. And then you have